Please remember, if you switch your camera on or unmute your mic, you will be recorded and you will be shared on our YouTube channel. Today, we are going to focus on looking at Microsoft accessibility and learning tools, along with supporting you in your application to become an MIEE. This is number 3 in a series of webinars. We've covered other areas previously, and the format of these sessions normally takes a little bit of time looking at apps that might be useful to support your practice in school or college, whichever educational phase you're from, and also thinking about how that then would support your MIEE application. And every single time that we come to one of these sessions, we will cover an aspect of your application and how you might be best placed to build your application so that it's as strong as possible, but also how you can incorporate any of the apps that we are showing you during these sessions. So the application itself has a formal structure to it, and what we will try to do through you joining these sessions is guide you in building that structure to make sure that it's as complete as possible and that you've got everything you could possibly think of in there so that you stand the best chance possible to get through and pass. So step 1 would be to join the Microsoft Education Center. And one of the things that we said we would do for you today is share a MEC code with you. So through joining me today for today's session, looking at the learning tools elements, we will gift you a MEC code at the end of this session, which you can redeem in the Microsoft Education Center. And that will then gift you the equivalent of 1,000 points. And you'll become a certified MIE. That's a Microsoft Innovative Educator. And that's a requirement to become an MIEE, which is a Microsoft Innovative Educator expert. But you'll also need to combine that starting point with either a 2-minute video or a SWAY application clarifying why you qualify as an MIEE and what qualities you possess in order to become a fully fledged MIEE. But stepping back one moment, if you want to know where the MEC is, the Microsoft Education Center, you'll just need to open up a web browser and search Microsoft Education Center. You'll arrive at a little page like the one I've got on screen there. And in the top right-hand corner where those fingers are pointing, you either need to sign in if you've got an existing account and you'll be able to redeem the code. And I'll show you at the end where to go to do that. Or you can create a new account if you wish. You can either log in with a personal account or a account provided from your educational institution, and then you'll be well on your way to that MIEE application process just by joining in today's session. So if you're thinking of that as a flow, you'll be a certified MIEE after today, even if you haven't done it yet. And if you have, you may as well redeem the code because it will credit you for undertaking the learning tools training. You'll then submit your application. You'll become an MIEE expert if you get selected, and that may then lead on to other areas such as thinking about becoming a showcase school using the Educational Transformation Framework from Microsoft. Turn on offers other training courses around that, and if you're interested in that, please do contact us. We support schools with becoming an incubator school for showcase schools, and very often, particularly with last year's MIEEs, we've had a number of people there that have transformed their schools to such an extent that the leadership teams have really sat up and paid attention, seen the impact on everybody in a positive way, and then they've decided to go for showcase school status. The aims of our training sessions are really simple. We've got 3 points to our mission about making all classrooms more accessible for all learners, and today is really key to that with the learning tools element. We're also on about creating engaging learning, and that engaging learning is usually achieved by a mixture of strategies. Some will be physical and traditional, and others will involve electronics and platforms, particularly those provided from Microsoft. And then finally, it's about reducing those workloads upon teachers as much as possible. We know wherever you are joining us from in the world, it's going to be a tough job. And the last thing you need is some admin on top of just delivering in the classroom or trying to improve the lives of the individuals you're working with. So what we're going to focus on is ways to work even more smartly to reduce those workloads upon you. We mentioned the application, and it's pretty straightforward. There are 4 questions to answer. And in the previous webinar, I covered the criteria for question 1. What Microsoft have done this year is they've written almost an exam syllabus of what they expect to see in its way an answer for each question. So you can see the 4 questions along the bottom there. First of all, question 1 is about you and why you consider yourself to be an MIEE. Bit of a biog. What on earth do you do? How do you do it? How are you bringing about those changes and transformations? Question 2, you want to showcase really how you are incorporating Microsoft technologies. That could be a physical device, but more often than not, it'll be something from Office 365 or Microsoft software. And that's also the philosophy behind us showing you lots of different areas of Office 365 and M365 so that you can incorporate it not only into your daily practice but that MIEE application. Question 3 is really about that impact beyond your door and thinking of spreading out across the school or maybe even to neighbouring schools, how you're going to bring about that transformation with colleagues or support networks that you work within. And then question 4 is really your aspirations. Where do you want to take things if you're successful in becoming an MIEE? Where do you want to be in the next 12 months? What do you want to try and do? What change do you want to bring about? Really make sure that you explain that. So we're going to focus back in on question 2 a little bit. And for question 2, it's about describing how you're going to incorporate those Microsoft technologies into your own classroom. You're going to need to focus on those 21st century teaching and learning skills, those transferable skill sets, but how you've been as diverse as possible in making sure that you bring absolutely everybody with you. And we do that on a daily basis, but sometimes the technology that we might have access to from Microsoft could help that even further still. Whether you're looking at a subject-based approach or whether you're looking at working with differentiated groups of students and pupils to support their learning needs. So what that would look like is described as a progress or a journey for you. So if you are initiating, it's going to be really you're in the planning stages and you're just thinking about how you're going to incorporate technologies in your classroom, but you may not have done that yet. And it's okay to talk about what you are aspiring to do, even if you don't have any evidence. But the whole point of joining us on these sessions is so that you can get an opportunity to see something that's quite easy to pick up and use. So you should at least be able to get to the developing stage and show some innovation incorporated into your own classroom. But very easily, certainly from last year's cohort, a lot of people got to the advancing stage and they were able to show a significant amount of innovation because they picked up 3, 4, 5 different apps over the series of webinars and the guest speakers that we have coming along to really be able to reinforce how sometimes in very subtle ways they're able to incorporate that technology. And we were fortunate that we had a few people, because of their positions either in schools or colleges, that they were able to really show how they were leading that change. It might be you're a subject leader. It could be that you work as part of the leadership team. You might be a phase leader and you can influence several other members of staff. Last year, it was even just a normal classroom teacher who decided to take it upon themselves and say, look, I'm not actually appointed to any sort of position in school, but what I'm going to do is set up my own technology group. I'm just going to spread the word between like-minded staff, see how many people I get that will pop along. I'm going to offer them some fruit, cakes and biscuits of a lunchtime, see how many turned up. And they were really surprised. They had nearly 10 members of staff come along, and then they formed a transition group in the school. So it's not just you that has to do this on your own. Think about ways that you could lean on other people in your school, spread out and bring about that change. This section of your application is quite a large section. It's 50% of your application. So you really need to focus on going to town and understanding ways that you could emphasize this. So make sure that you spend a fair bit of time on that application process, particularly here showcasing various different applications. So I would say if you're building a sway, you're going to have at least 4 or 5 sections in your sway explaining this. I would say about 10% per section. If you're going to be recording this, it needs to be the larger section of your video demonstrating this. Maybe you've recorded some sections of you working in a classroom. Maybe you've got some output of the work that's been achieved, but do focus your time on that to make sure it's as rounded as possible and that you are going to be able to demonstrate that really clearly. At this point, has anybody got any questions about the application process or question 2? And then I'll quickly cover the timeline before we get into today's main session. See, I've got one question there. Maybe not. Okay, if there isn't anything, I will move on. So as a rough timeline for how this is all going to happen, if you do decide that you want to submit your application, the window for that is any time between the 1st of and 15th of July. Microsoft will meet with a independent board of adjudicators to review the applications, and they will check whether it meets the criteria to become a QIE. Those will be announced roughly towards the end of August 2021. As you can see, the Turn It On MIEE course runs all the way through to January and will be running till June. And there have been various events that included. About 2 o'clock this afternoon was the closing event and the culmination of everything that's been going on there. That's all available for you if you want to go and watch any of those webinars and events that have taken place over the last week or so. Really worthwhile. Normally that's a physical event, but this time, for obvious reasons, it's been virtual. In that process is a gradual process where you build this portfolio, and even if you're just making notes in a Word document or something, or a OneNote, then do that. But it's really worthwhile just capturing ideas as you progress, because otherwise what will happen is you'll get to the end and inevitably you'll forget some of the amazing things that you've done, or you won't have the evidence. So now to build that as a portfolio is exactly the way I would recommend doing that. Moving on. And then in today's session, we are going to look at those 10 365. We will focus on various tools that they've got built into them to improve access to education. One will be Immersive Reader, much a transferable tool. We've got a little bit of looking at using Office Lens to get information in. We'll focus on Maths tool and also the Translator tool, and then we'll look at some of the tools in PowerPoint, such as the live function, the Rater, Mentor Coach, and Captions that can all be used to improve the accessibility to delivering or engaging with people that come to your school. Now, that might be parents, carers, and so forth. But what we're trying to show you today is there's a huge amount of scope to open up doors and welcome people in and be as inclusive as possible in the way that you operate. I know that's pretty small there, but what I will do later is, if you are in our MIE deals, I will post this slide deck in there, and then all these links can be picked up, the clickable links. But that very small slide that I've got there is part of a larger deck and website that you'll be able to access from the resources link there at the bottom on the second bullet point. Really emphasizing that Microsoft has worked globally with lots of organizations. It's not just Microsoft itself that's really insular. It's linked out across the world with people that are focused on improving accessibility to learning. That could be organizations that work within a country or work abroad, and they've looked at mobility, speech, they've looked at also mental health and well-being, they've looked at visually impaired learning needs, they've looked at hearing learning needs, looked at the very straightforward things that we probably grapple with every day, like reading, writing, and maths, which aren't always straightforward because somebody might need support or a way to access that learning that for somebody else it was, but that's the whole focus of this. There's a grid that's Samson. If you haven't followed him yet, I would absolutely urge you to go and find him on LinkedIn or Twitter. Mike Tholson from Microsoft, part of the education team based in America, but he's also got a huge passion for accessibility tools. And he uses this grid here, which shows you just how far-ranging the creation of the accessibility tools are in different elements of Microsoft Windows Office 365. And it increases every single day, and it's something that will only grow further still. And if you get something that you would like to see included in a particular element, there's always the feedback button on all the applications. Use it. They do listen, and if there's enough requests for something, it will. So as I said earlier, the remote learning needs that you are maybe supporting at the moment because you've got pupils and students working from home sometimes can be difficult to support if you haven't got students or pupils physically with you. So something we will also talk about this afternoon is how to make sure that they are supported as effectively as if you had them with you in a classroom. And absolutely everything can possibly be touched upon. What I would say is I'll give you a toolbox here today, and then it's thinking about how it transfers to your own situation and how you could use that. Really big success stories that I've seen during lockdown in various countries is very strong, which we'll show you in a little bit, or PowerPoint Live and having captions underneath. Somebody's presenting over a PowerPoint on Teams. And in some countries, it's been rolled out that Teams has the auto captions option available. That hasn't been rolled out everywhere, and it's good. But that also makes a big difference from, for instance, now just listening to somebody sharing a Teams meeting or joining a Teams live event and being able to switch on the camera and then have those captions in your own language. So as far as looking at an inclusive classroom is concerned, we are going to focus on reading, writing, maths and communication. And from time to time, we will dip out of the presentation and we'll jump over and have a look at the relevant coordinating apps. So first of all, we'll start with reading. In the Dyslexia Association has had a massive input here, and we are going to focus on Immersive Reader first. Immersive Reader is pretty much included in every Microsoft application and some. So it's got many uses, and it's very, very simple to apply. And even very young pupils, so in the UK, year 1 and 2, I've worked in classrooms where after showing them this, they've been successful in switching this on themselves, but also parents and carers at home have been able to use this to resources that are produced. Now, we said about reducing workloads. One of the ways that we suggest reducing workloads here is simply being able to produce a resource once and then using the accessibility tools to amend that and change that to suit the needs of the individual coming to access that resource. You've done your job once, they change it to suit their own needs. So let's just jump over and have a look at that. So I'll just swap screens a moment. Remember as well, if you've got any questions, we will have a pause point after Immersive Reader, but you can always pop them into the conversation, which is the little speech bubble on the bar there, and I will come and pick them up as I come back to them. Just syncing up the screen now. So what you should see is the Office 365 landing page. All of the apps that we're using this afternoon will either be available from the app launcher or they'll be available from links it will give you in the slide deck, which will upload to the team. We will start with Immersive Reader and we'll look at Immersive Reader in Microsoft Teams. So I'm going to go into a class team that I've got for a primary classroom. In here, Immersive Reader will be in various places. You will be able to find it in Onenote class notebook. You will also have it in assignments and it's there in posts. It's pretty much everywhere. If you're using the Edge web browser from Microsoft, it will also be built into the Edge web browser, so you'll be able to do that too. If I wanted to have one of these posts read to me, so let's scroll up, change of plan. For my class this afternoon, our afternoon learning isn't quite what he thought it would be in the first place, except I'm a pupil and I've got a very low literacy level and I can't possibly read the text as on screen. Well, that should not be a barrier to understanding how to be successful in my learning. So I hover over the post and I go to the 3 dots in the top right hand corner. And what I can do is enable Immersive Reader to translate or read that post for me. Now, Immersive Reader will load up. I think my broadband is having a bit of a time of it this afternoon, so we'll let that just load up. So as it's coming through there, what you will be able to do is get the text that was displayed in that post stripped back to the bare minimum, so it's very simplistic, but also you'll be able to get access to that text in a different way. You won't have to rely upon nudging the person next to you and saying, could you read this, or what does that say? You will be able to find out yourself. Now, this will work if you've got headphones or out loud, but if you're going to have this read out loud with a number of pupils in a classroom, it can get a bit deafening, so headphones sometimes do work quite well for that. You'll notice at the bottom here, underneath where it says next tip, we've got a play button. So if I press the play, if I was a pupil, I could have this read to me.
Martin Long at Thursday, the 14th of January.
So as you can see, it's read out really loud and clear. You can click the gear option there, so you can change the speed it's read at. You can choose whether you have voice. At the top here, you've got 3 options to change it. So the first, text preferences. And in text preferences, you can change the size. So if you're visually impaired and you need a large text, that's fine. If you don't need it quite so large, you can drag the size down. You've got complete control over that. And everything I'm showing you here will just change the experience for the individual. What it won't do is change the experience for everyone. So as I said, you produce the resource once, and then it can be adjusted based on the individual's needs. Something else you can do in here is increase the spacing. So if I turn it off, you can see the text gets more dense. If I increase it, you'll get bigger spaces between the letters to space out the words. Change the fonts as well. At the moment, there's 3 font types to choose from, but Comic Sans is a favorite with pupils because it mimics handwriting. If I had a visual impairment and actually needed a colored background, you can see at the moment I've got a green background. If I decided I wanted a pale yellow background, then I can quickly apply that. And that will help me to read the text on screen. I can keep the formatting that the original post was in, or I can switch it off so it's unformatted text. So that's the text preferences tab. You've also got grammar options. Now you might be wondering, why on earth are some of these words in black and some of them are in purple? Well, they're there to signify things that are nouns, verbs, adjectives, or adverbs. And you see I've got that switched on at the moment, but if I switched it off, it will go back to being black text. But if I did switch it on, I could choose the color I wish that to show in. So if I needed a darker purple, that's fine. If actually that vivid purple is better. I can also have that labeled up in the text. So I can have the little N to remind me that that's a noun. And down there, I've got an adjective. It's up to you what you have on and off. But in the UK, we also have something called SPAG, which is spelling, punctuation, and grammar. It can really help with that in a lesson and pupils being independent in their learning. If you want to break words into syllables, that's possible as well. So you switch on the syllables and you get the dots in between to help to break up the word for when you're reading it. I'm going to switch syllables off this afternoon. The final tab would be reading preferences. If you've got dyslexia maybe or another learning need and there's just still too much text here, it's too busy on the screen, you're struggling to concentrate on the line, well, you can apply a line focus. And either you can read at your own pace with that line focus on, or you can have it read to you and the line focus will shift to the line that's being read at any point. I'll switch that off. You've got picture dictionary, which can be toggled on and off in here as well. So if you've got a word, you can click on the word and you'll get the pictorial version of it, as well as having the individual word read out, so you can have that read out to you. Over there as well, you can choose to have the text converted into other languages. So if I wanted that to appear to me in Catalan, I can have it read by word, or I can change the entire document and then it will change all of the wording in there. So you can quickly see how it can be maybe original or Catalan. You can toggle between the two. So maybe actually English isn't your first language and Catalan is, but you could try and move between the two to learn some of the English words that you maybe got going on in class, if that's the primary language in the country you're in. But you can always go back to your own first language to understand what the text is saying. So you can adjust all of those depending on what you want. If you want to switch it off, you can go back to choose language, or you can toggle off whole document and go back to Word. And if you're leaving it on Word, when you get Word, you can also get the Catalan version there as well as the English version. So Immersive Reader is very straightforward, but it's absolutely everywhere. And it's the most common tool that I use when I'm teaching. And it's the most common tool I see pupils use all the way from when they arrive in reception class in the UK, right the way through secondary school and into college and sometimes university, depending on learning needs. So it's one of those transferable tools, but it's absolutely everywhere we go. Just to finish this off on this section, before I take any questions, just going to pop back over to the presentation itself. And just to say that as well as it being available in lots of different Microsoft applications, and you can see there's some of them, and that links back to the grid that I showed you earlier. Microsoft aren't precious about the reader, and it's there in all those other third-party platforms as well. So you might be using Wakelet, for instance, in your school. Well, in there will be Immersive Reader. If you're using Nearpod for sharing work, in there is Immersive Reader. So there's lots of other third-party companies that Microsoft is sharing the technology with free of charge to build it into their platforms. So you will start to see that growing further still. Another app that's really useful is Office Lens. You can see a demo of my phone there. I've scanned the document. When I've scanned that document, I can get it recognized on screen by text I've scanned from a book, and it can be read by Immersive Reader. So Immersive Reader is built into there, and the same options that I had in the Immersive Reader built into the other Office 365 are available there all the way in Office Lens. Office Lens is absolutely free. It's an app that can be downloaded on an iOS Apple device. It can also be downloaded onto a Android device and Windows devices. So as you can hear, it will read in other languages as well, but it's really effective, I find, for capturing pupil or student work, either when they're working at home and they're trying to show you what they're doing, if you've still got partial lockdown and some pupils and students aren't with you, or in class. I often walk around class, and with the tablet device I have in school, I might lean over a pupil's work. I capture that, quickly grab it on the Office Lens, and then either throw it into a page in OneNote class notebook, or maybe I just share it up on the board using something like Miracast. And it hasn't cost me a penny to do that, but all I've got is a visualizer, which is way more than a visualizer because of the text writing, because of the built-in Immersive Reader. So Office Lens is something I would also wholeheartedly recommend. If we go on to PowerPoint Live, are there any questions there on either Office Lens or Immersive Reader that you wish to pop into the conversation, or you want to unmute and ask me?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
I absolutely can. Hello and welcome.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. Martin, I'm absolutely blown away. This is my first time to sit in on one of these sessions. My name is Caroline. Is it too late for me to join the Microsoft Education Centre to train up as a trainer?
No, absolutely not. So if you want to join the Microsoft Education Centre, that's the place to go for self-study qualifications, and it would absolutely help you to amass that knowledge and skill set to then apply to Microsoft to become a trainer. If you want to be a trainer, an MIEE trainer, you need to be an MI, and then you can use that as a path through to develop and then deliver sessions such as this on behalf of Microsoft. But absolutely, you can do that.
Oh, thank you so much. I won't take up your time. Thank you so much. This is really insightful. Thank you.
No problem. If at the end, I will hang around at the end. So if you've got any individual questions as people drop off, I'm more than happy to chat with you if you wish.
Thank you so much. I will.
No problem at all. I will speak with you a little bit later. Let's swap screens again and just have a look at the next elements we're going to share with you this afternoon. So if I pick up the session that we were in. Something else that's really useful is PowerPoint Live. PowerPoint Live is available in the latest version of PowerPoint that you can install on your computer. So that would be in Office 2019, or it'll soon be Office 2021 because that's coming very soon. Also, if you subscribe or the education establishment that you work in gives you an Office 365 account, as long as they've got the correct level of licensing, you would also be able to download and install the desktop version of Office 365. But this is also available in the web version as well. PowerPoint Live is an amazing thing, and it's probably the right point to show you how it works. But essentially, you can be sharing a PowerPoint either on a live Teams meeting or casting it in some other way. And then individual students can have tablet devices in school, or if they're at home, they can have their phones or their laptops. They can have subtitles underneath the PowerPoint slides you're sharing, but it can be read in their own language. You can even give feedback. You can express your opinions with emojis and so forth. So if we just swap over, I will show you the web version of that in a moment. Just swapping screens. you'll see OneNote first. Oh, no, you won't. You'll see Posts first. So if I jump into, I've got a staff meeting here in PowerPoint Online, and that PowerPoint Online there is the web version that you will get access to, and you can get that at any point by going to the app launcher in the top left-hand corner. And regardless of whether you have Office on your computer or not, as long as you've got an Office 365 account from your school, you'll be able to get the web app version of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. They are pretty powerful. They have most of the day-to-day functions you're going to need, but there might occasionally be the requirement to open up the desktop version. So if you need to do that, you can go to editing and then go through from there. But most of the time, certainly working with pupils, and I know myself, I often just stay in the online web app version. In here then, we've got a PowerPoint that I've pretended to prepare for a staff meeting. So if I want to go to present live, that's where PowerPoint Live can be found. And in here, I can say that I want to do it only in people in my organisation, which means then only people with an account that's in the school's Office 365 or the college's Office 365 can join and listen in, or you can open up to anyone. So you might want to do this if you've got an open evening for parents and you aren't able to welcome them into school, but you want to share this in here. You can set up all of your audio settings in there. We won't go through all that today, but if we went into Presenter Live, it will prompt me that I'm not just presenting a PowerPoint in normal way. So what I've got in here is a QR code. Now I can share that QR code, and what people can do is they can scan that code on screen, and then that would bring them straight into the presenter view. And if any of you have got a QR code enabled device, you can do that now. Or you can take that code there and you enter that into a web browser, and you can share the link in Teams, for instance, in the meeting chat. And once you've done that, you go to show slides. It will remind me the whole time that you can join via the code there. And it looks pretty normal for me. But for anyone on the other side, they will start to get the subtitles of me talking, and they will see a smaller version of the slides at the top of the screen. Really useful again for getting people into my presentation. And as I went through the different slides, it will enable me to have everyone else listening in their own language. So I have had it in classrooms where I've got a huge number of different languages because I'm working in a demographic with EAL pupils in the UK. And I've got, for instance, 12 different languages in the classroom, and they've got PowerPoint Live open in front of them, and they've got headphones on, and they're listening in their own language because it's reading out in their own language. They've got subtitles in their own language, and I'm busy talking away in English in the classroom. So that accessibility is massively increased, and something that's just so powerful to give them the thing they're entitled to, which is access to an education, but make them feel included. I'm going to jump out of that a minute. That's how that works. When you finish, you press end session, and then the session's there, and that will stop the transcript link being available for other people as well. So that's available to you as well. Something else I'll show you now, but we'll probably cover it on the slides later in the session. You can use this with pupils and students, but it's also really useful to use yourself. Is you for rehearsing with coach, it will do that. It's a virtual coach. Now, whether it's pupils and students presenting to the class, maybe it's part of their coursework. I've even seen this used in universities. Trained students, they just aren't good at presentations to round up their skill sets, and it frees up a bit of time from the lecturer to do other things. So if I go into Rehearse with Coach, what you get is a different PowerPoint view. So it loads up, and I'm prompted down here in the bottom corner to start rehearsing with the coach enabled. Remember, this is only available either the latest desktop version of Office or the online version. But if I start rehearsing, it gives me a little recorder. So hello, welcome to today's staff meeting. I'm really pleased to welcome everyone back to school after this long period of absence. But what I'm going to start doing is thinking what on earth we're going to talk about next. And I'm not quite sure this afternoon that we are going to absolutely get through everything. And as you start to pause and stutter, it will remind you of your pace and give you little prompts. Now, those prompts are only visible to you, but what they can help you do is progress with the meeting. You might also think, well, I'm going to go to the next slide now. And when I go to the next slide, I'm going to start to talk a little bit faster. So what we're going to do now is talk about the annual review and the updates and everything else. And we're going to look at new policies later. And there's going to be quite a bit of content to talk fast. And what it will start to do is give you some coaching about talking fast or talking really slow and maybe not keeping up the pace you expect. And when you're finished, there we go, try speaking a bit slower. It's listening all the time. It will give you those little suggestions as you press the escape button, come out of your presentation, and you will get a review of your presentation. It will give you a summary, the total time it took, how many slides you went through, whether you use so much filler language like ums and ahs. It'll give you sensitive phrase suggestions, repetitive language. It'll give you pace graphs, even included there is almost like a dashboard. And you can choose to rehearse again, taking that feedback on board, or you could ignore it and just carry on anyway. But it's a really useful tool for thinking about, if you're trying to get people in, you want to come across as professionally as you can. And a lot of us that are doing this have had years of practice, but it doesn't come naturally to everyone. And certainly for pupils and students, it's another little tool to have in your arsenal to make them more independent and being able to deliver really good quality presentations to class, or maybe they're recording this and sharing it with their peers. So it's something else that you've got available to you as a tool in there. What we will do is move across and go back to the presentation. Thank you, Tiana, for putting in there the sign-up form. So if you want to sign up, anybody that's joining us for the first time today and you want to come on to more of these, you can join up to join our MIEE cohort. And by joining that, we'll also give you access to an exclusive team. And that exclusive team will be like a community that you can work within. And what we're trying to do is give you the opportunity to get support that you wouldn't normally get, and make sure that you have got a network of people that you can depend upon and rely upon. So let me come back out and reshare a different screen for you here. And it's gone to the wrong screen. Sorry, jump across to the other one. And that should be the one we want. And just reshare there. So you can see here, this will be the view on a mobile device, tablet or phone. You can see the subtitles coming up underneath in an entirely different language to the one that I'm speaking in. It's painless to join, and the sooner you get your students and pupils used to scanning QR codes, the better. If you've got the feature enabled, you can also get captions in Teams, and where you've got the 3 dots on the meeting bar in your Teams meeting window, just underneath record or turn off incoming video, if you've got it enabled in your Office 365 or it's been rolled out to your Office 365, there will be an auto captions tool. It's not available in all yet. I had it for a while in a demo version of Office 365 that I use, and it's gone again now. So it is in beta mode, so at some point it will come out. One of the other things that you can do is you can get suggestions turned on in Word. So for instance, spellings, instead of it just underlining something, when you hover over it, you can get prompts as to the words that you might want to use, such as 3 or 4 words for corrected spellings or words that you could use to improve grammar. So there's something that can be included. You've also got the ability in Word to dictate into Word and PowerPoint using the dictation tool that's built in. You can dictate in various languages, and then that will appear straight away online in the online version. So don't forget that that's there. And also that can save a massive amount of time for you or for pupils and students, because they can then dictate in their own language, and it can be a cost saving because you don't have to subscribe to expensive dictation packages anymore. If you want to switch those on, they're in Windows 10 under Settings. You can go into Typing, and then that will affect Word. And you can also, as I said, use the Dictate tool in Word. So there's even more options there. At the moment, it supports still 75 languages. It went in with the October 2000 updates, but it may get expanded still depending on requests for other languages. Math is another area that we're going to touch upon. There's lots of tools, and the maths tool in OneNote Class Notebook is really powerful. You're seeing it on screen now, but it's also available as a dedicated tool. So I'm going to jump out of the presentation and swap screens back over again. If I jump across to the web browser version, and we'll go back to where I was using. No, we won't go to that version. We'll swap to a different version, just going over there. I will show you the Maths Solver tool online, and then we'll have a look at it in OneNote Class Notebook as well. Just syncing across. and it should be there in a moment. So the Math Solver tool, if you search for Microsoft Math Solver tool, it's a free tool that's available online. It does go all the way from early years reception in Key Stage 1 in UK terms. So that's very early, sort of year 4 or 5, right the way up to college level. And you can pop in a calculation based on whatever you want. So it might be that we have, let's have 4 plus 4 take away 2 equals, and we want to know what that's going to be. I missed out a 4 there. So we can press the solve button. You can ink into that as well if you want, if you've got an interactive board. So in there, it will evaluate, and then you can go through and you can see what things will be as factors. It's got linked videos. It might be useful for solving those types of calculations. Then it can link out to other areas. Now, depending on how much you want to use or how little you want to use, you can use it for pupils being independent and learning. But something we covered previously was the power of Teams. And Teams itself is so powerful. If I go across to Teams, in my class team here, I'm going to go to OneNote Class Notebook. And in OneNote Class Notebook, you've got in class teams specific tools that will help you in being able to get pupils to be either independent in learning, or you can use them as a tool at the front of the classroom. So it can be used in absolutely either way, and it's up to you as to how you might use it. So when you first come into OneNote Class Notebook, it will look a bit like this. We've had previous training sessions on this in the MIEE series, and we've also got other events that you can sign up to at turniton.co.uk/events if you want a more in-depth session on OneNote Class Notebook. But if I went to, for instance, collaboration space, and let's go to maths. I think I've got a calculator version in here. In here, I've got a page that's, if I expand that further still, where I've got a calculation there. So if I highlight that calculation, and what I'm going to do is capture all of the work I've inked onto the screen. So I did this at an interactive board in school. What I can now do is go to the class notebook tab. Oh, no, I won't. I will go to the draw tab. Nope. I will get there in the end. I will go to the insert tab even, and I'll click the maths tool, and the maths tool will then come up and it will interpret the text I've highlighted on screen, and it picks up that I've written there 7 minus 3 plus 2 equals. If there's a operation or a digit that's incorrect, you can press the fix tool and you can then just type over the top to fix it. You can ink it into maths and pop it back onto the page of the OneNote if you want. But more than likely what you're going to do, or what the pupils are going to do, is they're going to select an action, and it might be they're going to evaluate what the answer is. So the answer is 6. Well, that's great, but it's not really going to help us a great deal to understand how we got to the answer of 6 if we don't understand the process. So what we can do is we can use the maths tool to free up time from me as a teacher to say, well, show me some possible solution steps. And then down here, it will start to break down one possible way of getting to the answer. It's not the only way, and there may be many different strategies that you're teaching, but what you might be able to do is foster independence in learning and free up some of the time that you have to work with other groups on interventions by other pupils using this tool. There's Immersive Reader again, so Immersive Reader could read this out. Again, it doesn't have to be a barrier that the text is now stopping them being successful in their maths. Once I've done that, what I could do is then develop it further still, and I could have a set of questions developed, and in here you can use Microsoft Forms, and what Microsoft Forms would do is it would create a set of questions there in the middle of that page, and it would say, I want 10 questions based on that calculation. It would auto-generate it, and then you could go in and you could have the pupils undertake those as multiple choice. It would mark it for them, and that maths tool has suddenly massively increased their accessibility to learning in maths itself. So the maths tool is something that's really useful. It's called Math Solver Online, but whether you're going to use it built into other Microsoft products like OneNote Class Notebook, or you're going to use the dedicated free app on the website, it's also an app that you can download from the Windows Store if you've got a Windows 10 laptop. So we are touching upon many of these this afternoon, but we will do an in-depth session on them at some other point when we look at accessibility and learning tools. Just going to share the next thing with you just to keep pace this afternoon. So I'm going to pop back over to the presentation. We're going to move into communication tools now. With communication tools, there are several great tools, again, that can be used. So Presenter Coach is the first of them. You've seen me doing that. And as I said, that's available in the most recent desktop version of Office or the online web app version. I was using the web app version there. My broadband's suffering quite badly today where I am, but it still works perfectly fine and keeps up with me. Communication tools you can always find by clicking that link, and the last update was the big update was January 2020, but there are some more coming along now. PowerPoint Live, OneNote Live Captions are all available in there. PowerPoint Live itself, I showed you it before, available on absolutely any devices. What it looks like in live real terms, selecting your language looks like that. There's the slide deck at the top. And then as I am busy speaking, the language comes up underneath on the mobile device. And what we can get is feedback going in different ways. So then the person listening is not just passive in information coming to them. They can either send me tips back, they can send me questions back at the end, they can rate the quality of my presentation, and all of that is done through PowerPoint Live. So as far as communication is concerned, you've got 3 different vehicles to doing that. You've got Presenter Coach, live presentations, and just to make it more interesting, there's a designer tool in PowerPoint that you can use to remix slides, maybe to make them more accessible, increase text sizes on screen, but without, again, you having to do a lot of work. It remixes the slide on its own, and you can decide whether you like the new remixed version or whether you're going to discard it. So either way, that is there for you. Moving through. As I said, in Teams, the captions are sometimes there, sometimes not, but that's what it would look like as a videoed version in a meeting that we've held previously. And what you should get then is the ability to speak in your native language, and the person then selecting their language would be able to have that running on screen. As I said, it's rolling out, it's not available everywhere yet, but that's what it would look like when it comes in. But don't worry, even if you haven't got it, I've got another tool that you can use. So the next tool that you can use is Microsoft Translator. Microsoft Translator is an amazing tool on its own, but it can be used in conjunction with OneNote to get live captions running. So when you've got live captions running with Translator, whatever you're doing in OneNote will appear on screen in another language. The Translator tool itself can be downloaded as an app on the Windows device that you're working on, providing you've got the rights to install it. It can go on most mobile and tablet devices, but it's also available on a web browser. And what I will do is I will show you that next. It's a very, very useful tool, and it's very powerful in not just using it in class, but I've had everything from a meeting with a parent, and my discussion with that parent has been extremely limited if I haven't had an interpreter or the child hasn't been able to help in translating the language because it's a language that I'm not fluent in. Well, I don't need that anymore because I could use Microsoft Translator. So to show you what that looks like, I am going to swap over screens again. And what we can do here is show you how that works on screen. Just log in, and what we'll do is we'll go into the Translator. So you can go to Translator by browsing to translator.microsoft.com and you'll arrive at a window like this. If you're somebody that's been invited to a conversation, you would choose the Join Conversation tab, and you, as the person running the conversation in Translator or delivering the session in OneNote class notebook, you would give the participants a conversation code, and we'll show you where to get that from in just a bit. You pop in your name, and you also put in the language that you are going to be wishing to have it interpreted into. So if I was a fluent French speaking person, I wouldn't leave that in English, I would change it to French because that's my preferred language. I don't understand English in that case. Or you are going to be the teacher and you're going to then deliver this session, but what you want to do is be able to give somebody a code to enter. You can log in with Google account if you've got it, you can log in with your Facebook, but usually you're going to log in with your Microsoft account. And when you're logging in with your Microsoft account, you click it, it will detect that you've already got a Microsoft subscription running, and it will log you in with the same one. You pop in your name, so I'm going to say that I'm Mr. Long in this school. My language is English. You need to make a decision whether you are using this just for a meeting scenario. If so, don't tick I'm using this in the classroom. If you are using this with a group of pupils or students, then do tick I'm using this in the classroom. So I'm going to tick that I'm using it in a classroom, and I press enter. It will then take me into Translator, so that loads up online in real terms. It wants to do a test of the microphone, so you need to allow that on your web browser. If you don't allow it, you will not be able to speak and you'll get some limitations. So hopefully that should pick up for me in a moment. I think I'll skip that just for speed this afternoon. It does normally pick up. As you can see here, the first thing you're going to get is a code to share, so you can copy that. You can put that into Teams, for instance, or you can get a QR code, and that QR code can be enlarged for people to scan on screen at home if you haven't got them with you, or you can print that QR code and you can have it in a classroom, or you can pop it on a door of a window. People can scan it from outside the building as well. So there's lots of ways to get people in, either by the QR codes or by the join codes. And then, as you can see, as I'm beginning to talk, it's picking up everything I'm saying on screen, but except for the person on the other side, that conversation will be showing up in their preferred language, and you can then do that from there. At the moment, I'm in presenter mode because I've chosen classroom, but I can switch off that presenter mode, which stops it listening to me, and then it will pick up actively when someone speaks back. And when they're talking into the computer in their language, because I've selected English, it would do its best to translate their French into English, so that I have a translated version of the conversation, but both of us are getting what we need. We're getting access, we're being able to support, for instance, that child in that fictional area to getting the best quality education, but we're working together as school and parent or care in the best way. Other options hidden up here. You can say that you'd like the transcription to become available straight away, or you can turn that off. You can have this speech output played out loud so it can be read. You can mute everyone, or you can lock the conversation. If you lock the conversation, then it stops working for everyone. You can also do things like change font size. If you need the font to be bigger because maybe somebody's visually impaired as well as needing another language, you can do that too. And a very useful tool down the bottom there is save your transcript, so that you can, at the end of that conversation, download a copy of the transcript and then send it to the parent if you wish, or keep it as a record for you as a school. So Translator, even in the web version, and it's not installed at all on this computer, I've just opened it up as a tab in the web browser, is still an extremely powerful tool, but install it on your computer and you can start to incorporate it with things like OneNote class notebook as well. So whichever way you choose to use it, it is massively powerful and another tool to get. Switch off presenter mode there, and I'm also going to stop the session. So whichever way you want to do it, at the end you exit, you leave the meeting, and when you leave the meeting, that meeting will then be locked. You've always reminded the conversation code at the top, so you can get anyone else to come in. So maybe somebody else has arrived, they need to join in, they also need it translated to their own language. Well, they'd have it translated into a different language, and they just choose their language needs when they join in the session. So whichever way you go about it, Translator can support and work with you on that. So Translator was the last of the tools that we were going to show you this afternoon, but what we're trying to give you is a flavour of what is possible with the tools that are built directly into the accessibility suite itself. I'm just going to swap over screens again and nip back into the presentation. When you get the links in the team, and again, if you want to join the team, the link is in the conversation bar there. You will have some recommended courses on the MEC to go and start with around OneNote and maths tools, around Immersive Reader, also around Presenter Coach, and we've got some general guidance documents there that we're directing you to as well. As I said at the beginning, this is a series of sessions, so if you've missed any, not the end of the world. If you want to start now deciding about creating your MIE application, you want to go back and watch some of them, you can always pick it up from our YouTube channel. And what Tiana will do is she'll drop the link into the chat to any of the YouTube channels in the previous sessions, and you can go back and watch those at any point. You're more than welcome to come into those sessions in the future as well. We've had one guest speaker. So last week we had Lanny Watkins, who joined and spoke about the power of Flipgrid. And we've got another one coming up with Nick Clark, who's going to talk about his experience of becoming an MIEE and also share some other tools that might be really useful for you. Another event we've got coming up in conjunction with somebody else that we work with, another company, is on the 28th of April. We've got a Microsoft Showcase Schools event for a showcase school in the UK in the south of England. You can sign up to that, and Tiana as well will drop some information into there how you can sign up for that. It's also in the team as well if you want to sign up for those. That will be a day with 3 sessions over the day. It will be run virtually, so regardless of where you are in the world, you can join. We've got Steve Bezic coming along from Microsoft Education, who will be opening the event and speaking. And then we've got really insightful sessions from the school and teachers just about how they've got on with working in a showcase school, their journey as MIEEs, how they're using Microsoft technology to impact positively upon the people and the students they're working with. Then we've got some more sessions coming up, one on using Forms and Sway, and then another one on using Microsoft Education Edition. So you can see that we've got quite a bit of scope there for getting into using even more applications and how they might feed into your application itself. The tools that you will be using, all the ones we've shared with you today, will be free in your Office 365. So all you need to make sure that you do is go and have a go at using them. If you think that that app is missing, it might be that you just need to speak to whoever administrates your IT or Office 365 to get that allowed for you. But also something that can sometimes happen is you need to search under all apps. So when you go to the app launcher I showed you at the beginning, down the bottom there's an all apps, and then every app in Office 365 is there alphabetically, so you'll be able to go and pick up the tools from there that we've used in today's sessions. So we're not showing you anything today that's going to involve spending any more money, something that Microsoft is providing for free, and it won't cost you any more. If you want to reach out to Microsoft itself, there are lots of people to follow. But as I said, Mike Tholfsen is somebody, and there's his Twitter handle. Also, Jen King on the UK Education team. She tweets an awful lot, and she's on LinkedIn, so definitely follow them. We're quite active on LinkedIn and Twitter too, so do follow Turn It On. We're always providing events such as this one that are absolutely free of charge, and we'd love to see you there and on future events where we have a deeper dive on some of these technologies that you've got available to you. Something else that you can do is if you've got any inquiries or you want to talk with us any further, you can email us at office.turniton, and I often get discussions around these sessions about, well, how can we make sure that something's included on future sessions? Well, we'd love to have your feedback, and I'll drop a link into the chat in a little bit for an evaluation form. Really doesn't take a lot of time. It's a couple of ticks, star gradings, and leave comments if you wish. Our YouTube channel is already in the chat, but as a company, we work quite extensively throughout the UK. We provide training, we provide bespoke CPD programs to develop individuals in schools. We've got a full consultancy service, we've got a project management service. We deliver technical support physically in schools and have done for a very long time, but we also offer MIS support as well as GDPR compliance support. So that's a whole range of ways that we can work with you. Now, I promised you at the beginning of this a code to redeem, and what I'm going to do now is jump back into the session and give you that code. So if I just come across the code that you will need for today, the MEC code is in the conversation. If you're watching this after the event and you're on the recording, if you go and check the associated conversation with today's session, if you enter that code into the Microsoft Education Center, and I'll provide the link next for the Microsoft Education Center, you will be able to sign in and redeem that, and that will allow you to get accredited 1,000 points, and that's one of the criteria for you to be able to come in and be able to start the process of becoming an MIEE. It's one of those cornerstones. So I'll just pop in there now the link for that. If anyone's having any trouble with that, I would say if you are, try using your school account. Occasionally it doesn't like a personal account, but usually it's okay with either. The Education Centre link is coming right over now. I'm just copying that from my side, pop that into the conversation for you. Here is the link to the Microsoft Education Centre. If you click that, top right hand corner is the sign in button. Once you're signed in, the sign in button becomes your initials. If you then click your initials on the drop down menu that comes up, there will be an option there for redeem code. A window pops up in the middle of the screen. You enter the code I've just shared with you and you'll instantly be gifted 1,000 points, which will amass you becoming a certified MIE, and that starts you on the journey to becoming an MIEE. So we're gifting you that this afternoon as part of supporting you with your MIEE application and also our work in conjunction with Microsoft. While you're doing that, have you got any questions or anything you'd like to ask? You can either unmute your mic or you can pop them into the conversation and I'll do my best to answer them. See, somebody's typing a question in now. Just let that come up. So with everything we've shown you this afternoon, I would pick the thing that you think is most relevant to you and your practice. Try it, master it, and then move on to the next. You may not find a place for all of them. You may think of a colleague that could really use one of the tools we've showed this afternoon. So that could be just part of your evidence of in question 3 and question 4 of your MIEE application that you've informed wider practice and maybe you've gone and influenced others in your school. Do record that, do capture that. If you even get a little testimonial from someone who's a colleague that works with you, you can use all of that in your application and it's all strengthening the evidence for why you should become an MIEE. No problem to both people that have said thank you. It's just a pleasure to see you all here this afternoon and also welcome some of you back along because I know I've got somebody or some people here that have come regularly. And whether you do come along regularly or whether you've joined us for the first time today, it's just a pleasure to have you here. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will say a big thank you for coming along today, but I will remain here for any individual type questions that maybe you don't want to ask in front of the whole group. I'll also stop the recording at this point and I will say